Hello and welcome to the Foxcatcher Preview. My name's Jules Vallance, joined up in Sydney. Nic Ashman, how are we, my friend? We were just talking off air just how we're just loving continually being in the process of doing the form, whether it be at these great city tracks or whether we're going far and wide. We're still in the zone.
Yeah.
Still in the zone.
I think I'm gonna, as I said to you and Hutchie, I'm going to change my name to Pride of Larry. I think I've had enough of the preparation, that's for sure. But hey, I'm going for a little 2-day freshen up the coast to sit by a pool straight after this show. So that's going to give me the nice freshen up I need to get through the next 3 weeks because it's a big 3 weeks. We've got some good racing. We also got the 2-year-olds.
Yeah.
This time of year, Jules, I find this is when you maybe find the Blue Diamond winner. They usually have a run before Christmas. It's usually end of November, early December. They have a little sort of 6 weeks hiatus and they come back usually for the Blue Diamond Prelude and one run and into the big one at the back end of February. So no resting in racing, is there?
Love that. Let's get to Cranbourne. It's the feature race meeting for Victoria this week. Let's see how this track's going to play. We're out 3 metres the entire circuit. We'll be on a good 4. We're not on a good 4 at the moment. I think we know to begin with, I think we're a soft 7 when sort of acceptances were done. We do this Thursday morning. It's sort of now a soft 5, but we'll be no doubt. I'm predicting to be on a good 4. My intel with my numbers is I think forward of midfield's going to be an advantage, and I want to bonus leaders big time on the way this track is because I think it's going to continue to dry out. There's no rain about whatsoever, and if it continues to dry out, better class horses around Cranbourne. We know it's a tight track. On speed, I think is going to be a major advantage. You got any lane stuff there, mate, that you can give to the punters?
Yeah, lanes 1 to 6 as good as any. So when you see that, and rails in run is no disadvantage. And the reason why I mention that is with little tight turning tracks like Cranbourne, you need the rails, around the bends to be a little bit inferior and also in the home straight. Otherwise, exactly what you've just touched on, it can get a bit leaderish. Ours isn't so hard leaders. We've sort of just been told that probably just horses in the first 6 is what you want to target.
Yeah, no doubt. Just I think on speed, forward of midfield's going to be a major advantage on Saturday. We've got 2 features, Nico. Cranbourne, a $1 million Meteorite. Give me the points bet market, pal.
Yeah, Hedge coming off that last start second, a little bit costly for some punters, is your favourite. An easing favourite though, Jules. Zoo Sensation, pretty firm in that second line of favouritism. Bit of a drift and needs some luck. Maybe it's just going from that wet track to the dry track. Arkansas Kid just first up off a bit of a break. Some drift there as well. Jigsaw, who's been competitive at Cranbourne, is on the next line of betting, the only other runner under double-figure odds. If you're looking for horses that we've had a little bit of a push for, Nadal, who obviously has a good record with that win, a high rating win here at Cranbourne, and looking down the page as well, a little bit of specking at different points in time for Beauty Charge, but it's still above its opening quote.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Mark, that you sort of say they're hedged on the quick 7-day backup after sort of getting beaten last start by Boston Rocks. Nadal's an interesting one because he's got this big outlier that sits out there on Nadal Island now is what he did here last year where it was just amazing. It was on speed the whole day. He was the big outlier. He came from last, looked like Burnborough, and just hasn't been able to get anywhere near it again. So fascinated to see what that horse does. In terms of a map perspective, I didn't see a lot of speed here, to be honest. I know it's a 1,200-metre race around Cranbourne, so theoretically there should be, but I thought Jigsaw would find the front, even though it's drawn what it's drawn, Nico. Other than that, I think Hedge has to roll forward from that gate. There's a few here that probably have to go back. Horses like Nadal, Arkansas Kid possibly could roll forward being first up. I'm not so sure. Did you have any thoughts here?
I thought Zoo Sensation coming back from 1,400 metres, I mean, he's got to look for the front, in my opinion. He's going to be, Jigsaw's a good, tough horse, don't get me wrong, but he's just got a little bit more natural stamina. So if he can find a way to hold Jigsaw out without completely gassing himself, then I think he becomes a horse to beat. Equally, if he goes fast enough in front and Jigsaw crosses him, there's probably going to be, well, those two have a little bit of a loose lead, gives him the option then of just popping off and sitting outside lead and perhaps controlling the tempo from there, which I think is equally as powerful for him. So I kind of like Zoo Sensation's map here.
If everyone is looking at these maps and going, what could be the left field horse that possibly goes forward with Jigsaw? Instructions will be for a horse possibly like Beauty Charge from 14 to possibly not go all the way back, but could actually follow Jigsaw across, and that could dictate a bit more speed into it as well. I wouldn't be surprised if that horse is gunned. from the start and ends up sitting outside Jigsaw or possibly a Zoo Sensation, as you have mentioned, Nico. If they don't, I think they'll go back to last, but they'll go the inside and try and ride for luck. There's some intel on Beauty Charge, who's going to go around at a massive, massive price, but will be ridden accordingly. Didn't really know what to do with the race, sort of left it. I thought if Jigsaw could find the front, the way the track might play, never been really one of mine, but I could play into the space if it sort of touched double figures. Cranbourne Cup, mate, what's the market there?
Yeah, well, it's another good race. They've done well attracting a good field here. Sabage is your favourite, just out of fraction now from its opening quote. Air Assault, second in the race last year to Globe, who's gone on to win a Group 1 weight for age race. Does carry an extra 4 kilos this year, though. Pretty steady on that second line of favouritism. Good support for Warney. No surprises there with the Ashes kicking off just over 24 hours before the Cranbourne Cup. Looking down the page, bit of a drift for Statuario, who gets back up to the mile after 1,400 last time out. Stapati's pretty solid, and just seeing if there's any specs at all. A little bit of specking for Saban first up, which is interesting for the Moody Coleman stable.
Map point of view for me here, I think El Rocco, who he knows much better on soft ground, whether they decide to run on this good surface, I'm not so sure, but at the moment he's in the race. I think he probably finds the front, again, drawn wide, but I still think it finds the front. I think there's enough other speed as well, though. Like horses like Air Assault could lead if El Rocco's not there. Jenny Lala, no doubt, can roll forward. Statuaro possibly could roll forward as well. I just didn't know where to sort of map it, Nico. Found it an interesting one. The real fascinating one is, what do we think that's going to happen with the favourite? Well, I think he's got to go back. Sabage we speak of here, and probably Warney as well has to go back as well. Maybe Sabage gets the back of Warney. Maybe they try and get into a 3-wide line. But around Cranbourne, I think it's really fascinating. But I'd be surprised if they go, let's try and roll forward on Sabage. Just never really done it. I'd be absolutely shocked if that happened. He has to go back, doesn't he?
I think so. There is a chance. I thought he might be able to get on the back of Bankmore in that 3-wide lane that you've done really well there. I sort of agree with most of your map. The only thing I think is, if I'm on Statuario, and Dean Yendall is a good aggressive jockey as well, he's got those 2,000 metre runs under his belt. He had to freshen up back to 1,400 last start. He's got enough speed to probably go with El Rocco for a bit. I think El Rocco can burn him off if that's what they really want to do, but I think he's got to at least make sure he crosses Jenny Lala to get across in that sort of one off the fence position. And then it just depends on whether or not El Rocco lets him lead or goes right on with it. And if he goes right on with it, El Rocco, that's okay. You can probably sit outside lead, which is just a commanding spot. A little bit similar to Zoo Sensation in the Meteorite. I think Air Assault probably gets that nice run in behind the lead. He's just going to need a touch of luck at the right time to get out to maybe go one better than he did last year.
Yeah, this is a really interesting race because massive fan of Sabage, have been through the whole prep. But he's the best horse in the race and will be the best horse of the race 6 months, 12 months down the track. But around Cranbourne on a really dry track from where I think he's going to map, don't know if I can be with him at the price point that he is right now at $3. I've marked him a bit bigger than that. I'm really keen Air Assault. I just think from a map perspective, it sits in the first 4. You mentioned it off the top. He ran second in this race last year to Globe, albeit he had 54.5 kilos. He's got a lot more here. But his rating last start that I've got going for it is through the absolute roof at 1,800 metres, Morphettville. I think he's still a better 1,600-metre horse anyway. I love him around this track. He's going to have the map advantage, 1x3, 1x4. I'm real keen Air Assault in the Cranbourne Cup, which then gets me to my Victorian set for this week, Nico. Obviously at Cranbourne, we're going to start race 2, number 7, a horse called Cafetiera. Look, lightly raced horse, only had the 2 starts, ran third on debut behind a horse called Quick As, who I've got a big opinion of. And then last start, just outstanding type of rating, sat outside lead, was too good, big number for it. I think inside draw, Craig Williams, this horse could lead, control the race, 1,400 metres, no issue whatsoever. Want to be with the horse on the up, on the minimum. Cafetiera for me in race 2. Race 6, number 5, Chocolates. I would love to know if there was an issue with it last start. I think if you look at it plain to the eye, you go, geez, that was disappointing. Just don't think it liked being cluttered up inside horses. There's no doubt its best numbers are on big tracks. Flemington, those kinds of places. Cranbourne's the complete opposite here. But Ethan Brown in the saddle, and I think it's drawn wide. I think its best is when it just gets to the outside of horses, and I think that's how Ethan Brown's going to ride it. I think it's the best horse in the race by far, forgiving last start because it was cluttered up inside them. think we get to the outside and we can win. Race 7, number 9, Let's Face the Music. Want to be with this horse each way. I thought first up in a race behind Harry's Yacht, it went pretty good. It's went enormous on when it won its maiden, and then it's just been in races that just haven't suited it. Now I think it gets to another race that suits it perfectly, maps beautifully from that gate, can be in the first 4 or 5. That's our MO this week. Let's Face the Music each way. And in the Cup, obviously, I mentioned Dare Assault. I want to be with it each way as well. Just be surprised if it misses the place. So we're going to be hard to place here, but I think it can get the big map advantage over Savage. And as I said, I'm a massive fan of Savage, but on this occasion, I think Air Assault can be in front and win for it. That is my Victorian set. All right, Nico, let's get to New South Wales. Feature race meeting is obviously in Kembla Grange. We are in the true position, the rail, but rain's about, mate. So soft to heavy rain. So how are we going to think this track's going to play?
Well, first of all, let's touch on the weather. So to explain why we think it's good now, and obviously I'm about to go and lie by a pool, and people are like, well, hang on, where are you going to do that if it's raining? It's really mainly coming tomorrow, Friday, up to 15 mil, and then again another 15 mil on Saturday. Okay. So it's 1 to 15, so we're not sure exactly how much we're going to get, but if you draw a line, take 7 and 7, still 14 mil, that'll push us deep into the soft range at the very least, and it might even see us get into the heavy range. So it doesn't hold water as well as, certainly not as well as a Flemington or a Caulfield, but even not as well as a Randwick or a Rose Hill. So just got to keep that in mind. In terms of how it plays, we're expecting it to be an off-rail day. We think lanes 5 and beyond will provide the bulk of the winners. Now, if you go back to this day last year, I just went and crunched some numbers for us just to give you a bit of an idea. It was run on a good track, but winning lanes range from 5 to 16. 3 leaders won, Jules. Only 1 winner settled outside the top 6, and only 2 winners had a double-digit barrier. So what was happening is they were jumping out and nothing was burning across to the fence. And maybe it was taking a little bit of pace out of the race. And what we were seeing is it was an up and off track. The track was good though. On Saturday, we've got a more testing track. We think it will be. So I think what you'll see is those mid runners and those back markers a little bit more in play than they were last year. But essentially you've got the same kind of pattern, which is down the middle or down the outside. And they may even get wider as the day progresses. That's how the track's going to play on Saturday at Kembla.
Love that. Let's get to the feature race, mate. It is the Gong. PointsBet market for it. We see Gringotts clear-cut favourite. You've got to carry the big weight, but to be honest, the way his rating is, it's an unbelievable rating this horse has for probably the lack of Group 1s that he has had, but it's just because he wins these big races with lots of money. So he's clear-cut favourite. Tavi Times next in the market. Estadio Mastala's next. Then Amore Victorious is given a bit of a chance from a market perspective. And then you push out to sort of further to a horse like Detonator Jack. How do you see this map for the Gong?
It's a tricky one to try and do because obviously, you've got horses drawn wide that have got a little bit of pace that can potentially go forward. But, given that there's no advantage to crossing and being on the fence, they might also snag back and look for a bum. So it's a tricky one to do. But I thought Sandpaper for Bjorn Baker might roll to the front. He's a real sort of natural sort of free-rolling horse. I think he probably gets there. Now, Estadio Mastala backs up, having run up at Newcastle last week in the Hunter, and he was super. He was one of our horses to follow on Monday's show. I think because he's drawn wide on the 7-day backup, I'm just reading the play here that they've got to go forward and take their medicine. I think they can go forward and potentially get the outside lead position. If they do, I think that's a good spot for him. What that then means, though, is that Gringotts, who's got a little bit of gate speed himself, probably just lands in the 1-1, and that's what's going to make him really tough to beat. Stablemate of Sandpaper, the more victorious, probably grabs leaders back. Now, the other ones to note now, Tavi Time, who's single digits and considered one of the main dangers to Gringotts, the favourite. There's a real chance that this galloper could get 3 wide, no cover. I suspect they'll have to roll forward unless they want to take their medicine and go right the way back. And I just don't see horses like Waterford or Ducasse sort of letting him in easy. So he's probably going to have to roll forward. That's my thoughts there. Other horses to note, Shadzi, who's got a couple of good sectionals in it, probably settles buried away, one off the fence, and the rest you can see on your screen there. But the map's really saying that Gringotts is probably going to get an ideal run just in behind what should be a reasonably genuine tempo.
Yeah, if he maps and ends up getting the 1-1, like he's going to be extremely hard to beat, that's for sure. And if the bigger players have got a mapping there, his price point's going to probably be even more interesting before those barriers open. Do you want to play in the race?
Yeah, I do. I like Ducasse just as a specky. I've got a huge amount of respect for Gringotts, and I think we'll get to Pin the Tail in a moment. I don't think you'll get that much bigger than what he is currently. Ducasse is an interesting horse, Jules. He's, go back to his 3-year-old season. He was batting around with some of the better 3-year-olds. He's got a verdict over Vivier, who goes okay.
Yep.
And he was only 2 lengths off Gringotts in the big dance last year. So and that was on a dry deck, and he's a much better horse when he can get his toe in the ground. The last time he struck a real wet track, a soft 7 or worse, was in the Doncaster Prelude earlier this year. And the rating he produced in that race there, I think, is good enough to run top 3 here. So up around that $20 mark, I think he's a good little 1x2 play.
Pin the Tail last week. You bring one back, mate. It's now 8-7 in terms of the overall score. Jimmy Starr in the Orr Stakes, who's ended up SPing with points bet $1.65. They just continued to want to be with him. They spat out a lot of the rest. Angel Capital sort of got spat out a little bit as well in comparison. You were $2.20, I was $2.30, but it was a big crush for Jimmy Starr. This week we are Gringotts. I just thought big field, possibly I know that it gets through all type of ground, and I think the map's probably the one part that probably is going to be my big downfall here with my price is that I think with that kind of weight, even though he's probably compared well to other horses in this race, and then I thought possibly, a soft track. I was happy to spit out to sort of $2.80 Gringotts, but if he ends up the 1-1 and a lot of players have got him at the 1-1 like you do, I'm a bit worried that I'm going to be nowhere near the mark, and your price is shorter, and I think you're going to be closer to the dot.
Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, I've gone $2.25. He's around that price now, to be fair. Look, the key is not just does he land in the 1-1. He may not. I could get it wrong. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. But the 2 main chances to beat him, according to the market, are Estadio Mastala and Tabby Time. And I think Estadio Mastala, both of them have got little map issues. Now, Estadio Mastala, I think, can get across and sit outside lead and probably get when I say cheap sectional, just sort of come off the ball a bit mid-race. But he's probably going to have Gringotts right on his hammer. And so who do you want to be? The horse that's had to work and burn across the field, or the one that's just sort of been there from the start? And then you switch to Tabby Time and go, well, where does he end up? I've got him probably 3 wide, no cover. If he doesn't end up there, he's probably going to end up further back. He's probably going to be giving Gringotts 4 or 5 lengths at the top of the straight, and that's not easy to do against Gringotts because he's a pretty strong horse. So I just think it's not just about where he maps, it's about where his main dangers are mapping, and it doesn't look particularly good for either of them.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, and I think for the punters out there to try and understand is when you got a horse like Gringotts at this price point that he is, which is quite short, usually you'll see a bit of action, Thursday and Friday around the middle pinners. They'll go, you know what, let's sort of like work around the edges here. Now, there might just not be any of that action. As I said, we've done it Thursday morning. There hasn't really been that action yet. Now, that might still develop. And then you got to wait until obviously you see how the track plays, but not if we don't get any of that middle pinner action of those horses sort of at the 8 to 17 range being just picked away a little bit, then I think that price is probably going to remain tight for Gringotts. So that's the Pin the Tail this week. Let's get to your set, mate, for Kembla Grange.
Yeah, okay, we'll kick it off now. So we're going to go to race 5, and this is number 8, a horse called Brave Call. Now, been a little bit costly, went around $3 last time out, went third up, but sort of was keen to take him on that day because I felt like he was coming out of a slowly run race and he was going into a race where the tempo looked like it was going to be pretty strong. You and I have spoken about this a lot on our review show, where when you're early in a preparation, you're coming out of a slowly run race and all of a sudden you go in a bit of a helter-skelter, it can sometimes be just a bridge too far for those horses. What it does do, though, usually, provided they're not too close to that fast tempo, is it brings them right on. I think that's what it's done to Brave Call. And I see Chris Lees has chucked the blinkers on as well. Tommy Berry in the saddle. Berry's absolutely flying. Don't forget to have a little saver on Bestower in the same race. It was pretty good and loves wet ground. Then we move on to race 7. Here's my girl, Catch the Glory, Jules. She's just first off here of 10 weeks, which I like. The little bit of residual fitness. She handles a wet track. That the first up run last preparation, which doesn't look that good for this, she was off 17 weeks. I think you've got to judge her more for second and third up runs to sort of get a gauge of where she's at. Her figures last prep suggest that she's well up to this type of grade, even though she was racing in benchmark 78s and whatnot. They rated very well. So I think on a sort of a 1x2, 1x3 basis at around that $10 mark, she's a good bet as well. And the last of my bets is a horse that we've already spoken about, and that is Ducasse. I just feel like he gets his right conditions. He has shown, well, I didn't mention this before, he's shown a bit of a nasty quirk to over-race in his last couple of starts. So hopefully that doesn't come out on Saturday. If he settles well in the three-wide line with, a bit of, as we say, a bit of cover, gets to the centre part of the track, gets his pet conditions, I think he can give you a real side of big odds.
Beautiful. Love that. Some plays there for Kembla Grange punters. Nico, I'll see you Monday where we review it all. You enjoy the pool now, brother.
I will, my man. I'll send you some pics.
Righto, punters, time to get over to Western Australia, joined by Daniel Cripps. Dan, how are you, mate?
Hello, Jules. Going well, mate. We've got 1 week of the Pinnacles down, 4 to go, and it doesn't get much bigger out here in the West. On Saturday with our first of the Group 1s, that being the Railway Stakes. So let's get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's have a look at the points bet market for the Railway. Watch Me Rock is the favourite. Look, Western Empire's got to carry a big weight, 58 kilos, next in the market. Cosmic Crusader's in the market right now, but 4E, I don't think he'll get a run being the fourth emergency. Super Spink next, Smink. And then you got 2 sort of coming over from the east in terms of Osipenko, and we get further out to Depth of Character. Let's get to your map, mate. How does it set up? Looks like you've got sort of a loose lead, possibly with Comfort Me.
Yeah, I think so. This race could easily be run at a slow to moderate at best tempo because Comfort Me is your only leader. And last start, Holly Watson, when she did find the front of that horse, went along at some really slow sectionals. So, look, it is a Group 1 capacity field. You would think when there's that much money up for grabs, there are going to be some other horses who are going to chance their hand, and I think a horse maybe like Admiration Express or Ginger Baker could potentially roll forward and land in the breeze. But, yeah, I don't think they're going to go hammer and tong out in front, that's for sure.
It's a really interesting race overall, the Railway, and I know history doesn't guarantee a success, so we're very loath to do this sort of at Foxcatcher, but you look at this race overall in terms of what's happened in the past. Last 7 winners have carried 53 kilos. Last 12 haven't carried more than 53 and a half. And you've got to go all the way back to that time when Lucky Grade carried 58. It's very similar to a race we have here in Victoria called the Rupert Clark Stakes, where only 3 of the last 12 have carried more than 54 and a half kilos. Sometimes you just see this pattern with these emerging horses get down in the weights and then they emerge to be better horses after this race. But it seems to be a pattern that's developing with the Railway Stakes, Dan.
Yeah, for sure. It's always been a horse, and Bob Peters in the Cerise and White has kind of mastered it. You just find your up-and-coming 4-year-old who gets in on the minimum, and like you said, they're going to go on to bigger and better things in the future. In saying that, I don't know if there's any real superstars down the bottom of the weights this year. So while Western Empire has history against him, I'm certainly not ruling him out. But the one intriguing part for me with Western Empire is Barrier 1, and just as we spoke about with a slowly run race potentially, I don't know, while it looks okay on paper, it just could get a little bit sticky at some stage if he's 3 or 4 back the fence and the other main chances of making their moves and building momentum at the top of the straight.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, 4-back rail is, to be honest, nightmare. You're just hoping for things to fall into place. 3-back rail is really poor as well in terms of where you want to be. And for a horse like that just needs momentum, and once he gets it, he can really find top speed. I think if you're going to decide to take a price punters out there about Western Empire, half of it's going to be on the fact that he's going to get luck at the right time, and sometimes you have to factor that into your pricing. Look, you're over there in WA. What did you think of the favourite? Is he short enough? He's been well found. Watch Me Rock.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, once I'd finished my market, I did have Watch Me Rock on top. Pike went with him over Western Empire. Came up with the absolute marvel of a draw in Barrier 4. But in saying that, $3.50 at the moment with PointsBet, yeah, that won't get me. He deserves favouritism, but it just seems short enough. And like we see over here in the West a lot, it does seem a little bit of a Pike price. So it's a really open race. And Jules, I'd be keen to get your thoughts on some of the raiders because I'll put my hand up. I'm a guy who on Melbourne Cup Day gets more excited about a Bunbury Maiden than the Cup itself. So I've got to pour I've got a really poor handle on these Raiders. And yeah, what do you think? Anyone in particular that catches your eye?
Well, I think Ozapenko probably runs a career peak last start. I think it carried 62 kilos. The problem with it is its map. It's going to have to go all the way back. And then you've got depth of character as well, who's got the Autumn Glow form line, which is no better form line at all. 6-run prep. There's no issue there because it can go deep into the prep. It sort of did that Queensland last prep. Obviously, that camp won this race last year with Port Lockroy. But again, it's drawn wide as well. What are they got to do? Go all the way back, be negative from the gate. So the way I think this track plays, you're probably going to have to be maybe forward of midfield. I just think those two probably take themselves out of it. I don't think Iona Merck really is a 1,600-metre horse. So again, I think it's at a bigger price. Don't really want to be with it. So I think it has to be a local, mate. That's that race. What about the WA Guineas? What do you want to do with that race?
Yeah, Jules, this is a race that I do want to focus on. So I've sort of all the way through. We've got a really elite crop of 3-year-olds coming through. We touched on a few good ones last week, and the Guineas is shaping up to be an absolute crack. We've got a horse called King of Light. He's the boom horse of WA at the moment, or in the 3-year-olds anyway. He's 4 from 4, undefeated. Dan Morton's been giving him some really good raps. And saying that, he's currently $1.85 favourite, and justifiably so. But I'm actually with another horse, number 3. He's a Phoenix. I reckon he's the one that's been forgotten by the market. I was actually on him each way last start. He's a horse. He bowls straight to the front, likes to run some really good sectionals, and he gave a massive kick on straightening. And I will admit, I thought I was nearly home at the 250-metre mark until, in typical Pike fashion, he got a saloon run up the fence to grab me in the last couple of strides. But if you look at the two going into Saturday, so He's a Phoenix has to give King of Light a kilo, which is an obvious knock, and you'd probably say that King of Light might be better suited at the mile. In saying that, I really liked He's a Phoenix after the line. He didn't give it away, and his work past the post was strong. So, again, he's going to go to the top. He's got to roll him along. And the one thing that's in his favour, he was 6 weeks between runs going into last start, so I think he's the one who can come on more fitness-wise, maybe a little bit more natural progression. Look, am I confident that He's a Phoenix can beat King of Light? No, I'm probably more hopeful, but I'm really confident that he can go to the front and run a bold race. And we're getting over $2 to play. So I think he's an each way bet to nothing for me at around $8 on PointsBet at the moment.
All right, love that, Dan. What about anything else on the card for the punters, mate?
There is a really exciting horse running in race 10. That's number 2, Smooth Chino. He's undefeated. He trialled super behind Joker's Grin and then got the job done first up. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him step out and strut his stuff again.
Love that, Dan. Good luck this week, mate, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks, Jules. Good luck on the weekend. Go well.
What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.